They arrived 8 months ago claiming to have the money and the plan.
From today, we're basically saying, right, let's get cracking, let's get this underway.
A brand new police headquarters for Lake Macquarie at Belmont, upgrades at Morisset and Toronto. Our cameras even given a guided tour of the conditions to show what Labor hadn't fixed in 16 years.
You can imagine what the working conditions are like for police. I mean, this station was built generations ago.
They're really quite poor buildings, they're old, they're just not adequate for modern policing.
But in all this time, nothing's changed. A DA hasn't been lodged with Lake Macquarie Council, leaving some with questions.
If the project was shovel-ready, why haven't they started? The people of the Hunter community are going to start calling the Premier Barry backflip.
NBN News can reveal the plan has been sitting on the Finance Minister's desk since March, waiting for that final tick of approval.
That being the case, I am absolutely hopeful that things won't be too far away at all and that we'll be dealing with Council then on a DA approval.
MP Gary Edwards is as frustrated as anyone. Not only are there 21 more police officers working out of buildings like this, the new headquarters was seen as the solution to Swansea's long-running battle for more police.
Yeah, look, I'll be talking to the Police Minister during the week and I'll also be speaking with the Finance Minister.
For the first time in many, many years, we're actually going to have the cops there first before the community comes.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
If anyone knows the area and has their eyes open, this place has changed a lot in the last 5 years, and getting this extra activity in the park really helps with that as well.
The battles between these sides have traditionally been fiery, but early on neither side was showing its hand. Michael Bridges showed his true colours, while new FFA Chief Executive David Gallop was getting reacquainted with Hunter Stadium. On the pitch, the Jets captain tried to cause problems for the Phoenix keeper. At the other end, Leo Bertos gave Mark Birighitti something to think about, before Alex Smith almost put the visitors in front. Scott Neville got forward to force a save by Mark Paston, but it was a former Jets fan favourite who caught Newcastle's defence napping. The home side went looking for an equaliser early in the second half, but Emile Heskey couldn't add to his goal tally. The result was the same when Ryan Griffiths tried his luck from long range. Things went from bad to worse for Newcastle midway through the half, as Brocky went looking for a double. In the end, Birighitti paid a heavy price, stretchered from the ground. Injury replacement keeper Matt Nash took the gloves, but his afternoon wasn't much better. Brocky in the right place again to score his second. A few minutes later, the Jets' defence fell asleep again. Josh Mitchell lucky to stay on the field after this effort. Paul Eiffel stepped up to put the final nail in Newcastle's coffin. Brocky should have had a late hat-trick, but 3-0 was enough for Wellington to move out of last place.
Coffee on Hunter, ground floor and 1 penny black. 3 names giving the mall a caffeine hit and providing a new and much needed buzz.
Overwhelmed by it. It hasn't stopped every single day. It's just been chockers up until 5 o'clock.
Sadly, not all mall businesses have experienced that sort of demand.
4 years ago, NBN News completed a survey of 45 retailers in and around the mall. Today, we returned for a head count.
Of the 45 businesses we surveyed, 23 have closed. That's 51%. Back in 2008, we also asked would each retailer remain if David Jones left and if GPT pulled out. 75% said they would leave, including hairdresser Lyndall Day.
I decided to stay, yes. Some days we're absolutely fine, some weeks are great, but there's definitely been a definite downturn.
Thomas's timepieces is also still ticking.
We have been here 24 years. We're extremely busy and really David Jones leaving has made no difference to us.
50% of those we surveyed in 2008 also wanted the heavy rail line cut at Wickham. With a state government decision looming, that's one response that hasn't changed for Lyndall and Maureen.
Perhaps they need to change it. I do think light rail.
Heavy rail, it's not necessary anymore. You only have to look at the trains to see that they're not full. So light rail would fix the problem.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
It's been 3 years since Ellen and Phil Haynes lost their son.
It's haunting because you live it every day. It's very difficult.
Instead of a wedding and a 30th birthday in 2009, Timothy's family was left with his funeral.
I said, I'm sorry, you've got the wrong person. Our son's a plasterer. He wouldn't be in a hole in the ground. He said, I'm sorry. He's been buried alive.
Police had come from the East Maitland property of harness racing trainers Robin and Christine Hosking. Timothy was working on a pool for horses. The trench wall collapsed.
Forensic medicine rang us the next day to tell us that he actually died from traumatic asphyxiation.
On Friday, the Industrial Relations Court found Alan Wadwell and his brother Scott Wadwell, Timothy's bosses, responsible and fined them close to $250,000.
The judgment was that they failed to provide a safe workplace.
They were plasterers and did commercial plastering. So they really shouldn't have been there.
And now the Hayneses are telling their story as a warning to other bosses.
Every worker should be able to go home to his family.
You don't expect to lose your child like that in such horrific circumstances.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
Sunny skies and even brighter smiles. Welcome to Newcastle. The Rhapsody of the Seas berthed at Dyke Point early this morning from Sydney. It's 2,500 passengers, upbeat and keen to explore.
Nice beaches, nice people,
walk around
hot
town,
sun.
yeah, coffee.
For some, it was more of a homecoming.
Oh, wonderful. I come from East Maitland.
Where are you from?
Maitland.
At 279 metres long, the ship's one of our larger visitors, commanding a new position in the port.
We've seen cruise ship sizes increase, and this port's adapted quickly to that by coming to a new location that can now accommodate ships up to and above 300 metres in length.
Passengers were ferried by shuttle buses to the city, Queen's Wharf, a heaving hub of information and advice.
It made it easy to get around and see things in the area.
We've been to the shops, we've been to the brewery, had a beer. And
it's not even midday.
Good fun. Oh, it doesn't matter.
There's also a new mobile phone app giving visitors instant information.
What would you like to do, things to do?
It's the first of 10 cruise ship visits to Newcastle this season, and authorities are pulling out all stops to keep travellers happy, even an entertaining way to endure those inevitable queues. The Rhapsody of the Seas set sail late this afternoon with a distinctly Novocastrian send-off bound for Brisbane.
Caught red-handed. Watch as this thug breaks into a car, helping himself to thousands of dollars of tools. Unaware, Big Brother is watching. He takes off with 2 drill cases and batteries, worth around $2,000.
I went through the footage and to my amaze, I still couldn't believe that we had been robbed.
It sparked an all-out manhunt by Mark Clulo, who already had the cameras set up around his Lake Macquarie home.
Now, little did this thief know that while he was helping himself to Mark's tools, 7 cameras were watching his every move.
And could this be Lake Macquarie's silliest criminal? Months later, the same man comes back for seconds, oblivious to the booby trap he's about to walk into.
Melbourne Cup night, I had a feeling he was coming back that night. I put up additional cameras, refocused the cameras, and set up a little booby trap for him, a tripwire.
He triggers the tripwire, a metal pole falls on top of him, and he scurries off, no doubt with a sore head.
The Black Horse Bandit, we've nicknamed him Big Stan, as in the movie.
And this is one family not to mess with. Mark owns a security company and has even helped provide surveillance for the military.
You picked the wrong guy. You need to bring the tools back, mate. It's going to work out better for you.
Mark has posted the footage on social media while police investigate.
The Toronto Police have been absolutely fantastic. They're doing a good job. The footage has been distributed around the state. It's only a matter of time. His days are numbered.
So if you recognise this man, contact Crime Stoppers.
There were 7 cameras watching you and it's all on footage, so you better bring the stuff back.
And if this brazen bandit strikes again, you can be sure Mark will be watching. Stephanie Jeans, NBN News.
When it comes to keepers, the Jets haven't had much luck in recent years. Neil Young suffered serious nose and facial fractures thanks to a stray boot in 2010, which effectively ended his A-League career. This season, Ben Kennedy suffered a knee injury that required surgery. Mark Birighitti is the latest to be added to the casualty list. He'll have surgery on his fractured cheekbone and could be out for 8 weeks. Matt Nash was only brought to Newcastle as cover for Kennedy. Now he'll take centre stage. The youth team's Jack Duncan moves onto the bench after returning from his duties with the young Socceroos, while Hamilton Olympic shot stopper Brad Swancott has also been used at training recently. The club will explore other options.
We've got our contacts in regards to agents, so we'll just have a look.
Aside from the keepers, yesterday's loss to Wellington proved too much for the coach. He's guaranteed no one is safe ahead of the clash with the Heart.
We've been going through this with some of the players for a good, 15, 16 months who've been here last year. So if they're not going to get it, then we just need to change.
A player the Jets let go did most of the damage for the Phoenix. Brocky was keen to stay in Newcastle. The Jets maintain his asking price was too high.
Oh, look, we would have liked to have kept him, but we couldn't afford the salary that he was going to have.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. A 4-0 win over Adelaide was the perfect response to a 6-1 loss to Perth for the W-League Jets.
We spoke about that immediately after the game, addressed obviously that wouldn't repeat itself ever again from a performance point of view, and the girls were outstanding this week, so they went back to a lot of good habits and they got their just rewards.
Having conceded 12 goals in 3 games prior to the weekend, Newcastle isn't getting carried away as they prepare to face Western Sydney.
The girls are determined to obviously continue in the same frame as the weekend, but we go to Western Sydney knowing they're a different proposition. They're a very strong team and they've just brought in 2 international players as well.
Hannah Brewer is the side's main injury concern, while Emily Van Egmond will miss another game, having set up camp with the national team in Shenzhen. The Matildas begin their quest to qualify for the 2013 East Asian Cup tomorrow with a clash against Chinese Taipei. Aside former Newcastle striker Katie Gill expects Australia to dominate.
They're good on the ball, their touch is good and they like to keep possession, which all the Asian teams do. So I think physically they lack it a little bit, but it's one of those games that can become extremely frustrating if we try and get out there and try and score as quickly as possible.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
It's normally a quiet community, but this morning, shortly after 2 o'clock, thieves rammed through the front fence of the Paxton Bowling Club. The offenders driving the stolen Nissan Navara onto the bowling green and into the club. With such force, the vehicle almost drove through the other side. The three men then loaded the club's ATM into the car and fled. The community club left to pick up the pieces.
Angry, amazed. Yeah, you just don't expect this sort of thing. In a little community like this, you just don't expect it.
It's the fourth attack on a Hunter licensed premises in 5 days. On Friday night, a male staff member at the Adamstown Bowling Club was threatened with a machete, while on Saturday, 2 men stormed the Wanji RSL, firing shots into the ceiling. While just before 9 this morning, a female employee at the Murray Golf Club was threatened with a knife and forced to hand over the contents from the safe. Police are investigating whether the incidents are linked.
At this stage, our investigations are going to look at all aspects to see if a gang is involved in relation to this or if it's a number of different groups of people.
Earlier this month, John Chin gave a seminar equipping local clubs with ways to prevent break-ins.
We've got no idea when they're going to strike or where they're going to strike. So, in a way, I suppose clubs are kind of a sitting duck.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News. The year 1989, and Val Kelso was here watching a nightmare unfold.
And all the stories I got, there was a bomb went off in the bank, another one, an aeroplane went down in the middle of the street.
It was an earthquake, Australia's most damaging in terms of a financial disaster, but the costs, as we know, were far greater. Unpredictable, but not uncommon. On average, an earthquake of this magnitude happens every 2 years in Australia. But the experts say it's unlikely the Hunter will see one that damaging again.
We're now treating Newcastle more like we would treat anywhere else in Australia.
Geoscience Australia has released its latest national earthquake hazard map, an assessment of where earthquakes are most likely. While the red zones are almost certain to be shaken, Newcastle has what they're calling a moderate risk in the next 10 years.
So it remains a slightly above average area for Australia, but not a particularly high area.
Despite the downgrade, the federal government is warning we can't be complacent.
It's very important to a local government, and I might say state government, from a planning perspective, what should be the appropriate building codes.
making sure we're better prepared in case the unpredictable happens again.
I think you just live one day at a time because there's nothing we can do about it, is it?
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
We'd like people to think about taking this up if they're interested in using energy in a different way, if they're interested in saving money on their energy.
In Sydney, there's been a push to get a heliport since the 1980s.
It's been 25 years since there's been a heliport in Sydney CBD, and a land-based option just wasn't working.
Just approved, Newcastle Helicopters has been given the green light to build a new floating vessel equipped with 2 helipads. It brings Sydney in line with a number of other international cities. But the difference, while most floating pontoons around the world are joined to land,
It is a movable vessel and it's totally surrounded by water, so it needs to be catered to by water taxis only.
making it one of a kind. Designed to attract tourists.
The tourist market, of course, the cruise ships going into Sydney are on limited time, so what a great way for them to experience the harbour, or to go on a longer trip up to the Hunter Valley, for example, down to the snow, Blue Mountains, and then still be back in a day.
And entice business. Stage 1 of floating barge is expected to be built in 3 weeks. Operating near Fort Denison, it will also cover 8 other locations around the harbour before an upgrade.
By the middle of next year, it'll actually be a lot larger. It'll have passenger waiting areas, meeting rooms, refuelling facilities and aircraft parking.
Amy Ziniak, NBN News.
The same way a pen grip trains students to write with a pen, this device trains students to cut correctly in a correct technique.
There is an offence to set a trap which has the potential to endanger someone's life or cause grievous bodily harm. It carries 5 years imprisonment maximum.
As the search continues for Mark Birigitti's temporary replacement, the Jets have signed former Fury midfielder Chris Grossman as cover for Ben Kantarovski, who recently underwent knee surgery. Ben Kennedy is still recovering from his own knee operation. Today he joined his teammates for a special visit to John Hunter Hospital, meeting fans like 5-year-old Connor Gibson and 9-year-old Beau Welling. Birigitti will visit hospital himself for surgery on his fractured cheekbone once the swelling has subsided.
I feel sorry for Biri. As I seen his face this morning, it's not the prettiest. My son called him a pirate, so I don't think he was too happy with that.
The Jets players have been put on notice following their loss to Wellington. This week's opponents, the Heart, are in the same boat.
I saw John Aloisi's face after the last game, and it's something that I'm sure the players are going to react to down there in Melbourne. And like I said, you should have seen our coach's face after our game.
Peter Walsh took control of the Northern Blues back in 2000 when they were struggling in last place in the real NRL. During a 5-year reign as coach, the man known as Spider took the Blues to the grand final twice, winning the decider in 2005. The Port Stephens Sharks believe he's the right man to lift their fledgling club.
He's got a great rugby league knowledge. He's got a great rugby league background. He coached in England. He coached with Alan McMahon at the Illawarra Steelers. He's played locally. He's coached locally. And
Walsh has extensive contacts in the rugby league world and is already busy speaking to various players about the prospect of joining Port Stephens for next season. The club is confident the Sharks can be competitive in 2013, but is still appealing for the same level of support the Blues enjoyed last time Walsh was in charge.
well, I think back then the community support was outstanding. It had a really good supporter base. So we're getting the numbers through the gates. We're getting a little bit financially stable, so we're able to attract a few more players. And that's where we're at the moment.
Port Stephens had been chasing a host of candidates for the coaching role, including former Manly star Cliff Lyons. They're still hopeful a long-term replacement will come on board to work with Walsh.
Peter's probably a short-term solution for us, but he's someone like Cliffy Lyons, or we've even spoken to Matty Cooper from the local competition, that they may be able to come on board either early next year or mid-year and start working with Peter to help develop us for the 2014 season.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
It's a grand plan by the man in charge of Newcastle City Council to bring the budget back from the brink, and it appears little is off limits.
Nothing is not being considered as part of this framework moving forward.
General Manager Phil Pearce wants to make budget cuts worth $19 million over the next 2 years, with overall savings of $189.7 million over a decade. The draft recovery plan includes rolling out entry fees at the museum, art gallery and Fort Scratchley.
That is one of the options available to us, and we'll explore that as we go forward with Council and put the proposals to them when we talk to them in March.
And this on any possible job losses.
We haven't got concrete plans, so I'm not going to speculate on what the outcomes might be.
On top of that, Council will eventually apply to IPART for a special rate rise of 7% over 5 years. It comes after Council lost $11.5 million more than it had bargained for in the last financial year.
Simply the costs of doing all the services we do, and they're very extensive, against our revenue base has got out of whack.
A detailed plan is expected to go before Council in March. Christy Reading, NBN News. Nick Kennedy shouldn't be alive. Last year, the 18-year-old Raymond Terrace P-plater drove straight into the path of a car travelling at 100 kilometres an hour.
It was never going to happen to me. I'm invincible, like 6 foot tall, bulletproof, and then I happened to learn the hard way.
His injuries, doctors say, were so bad he shouldn't have recovered.
I underwent 2 emergency heart surgeries, broke my right leg, broke ribs on both sides, split my spleen.
His scars, a constant reminder of how close he came to death.
Every single time he said it in the mirror, it all comes straight back to you.
Today, he shared his story with students from St Francis Xavier College as part of the Roadwise program, an initiative educating young drivers. A program, as we head towards the school holidays, becomes all the more important.
For some reason, this region, the Hunter Valley, continually rates as one of the worst in the state for fatalities involving young drivers.
Something founder Michelle Davis knows all about. 5 years ago, she lost her 2 sons in an accident.
The words your parents will never forget, you know, we're sorry to inform you, but, and of course that day changed all of our lives forever, and we've never been the same since.
And from today, neither will these students.
But I think we're really lucky as a generation to be given this information and to know the consequences of our actions.
Christy Reading, NBN News. The battle of online versus face-to-face. There's no denying online shopping is here to stay.
Just easier, I think. Travel, yeah. Car parking, yeah. Much easier online, I think.
But there's certain advantages the retail experience offers that a click-to-purchase transaction just can't.
Well, I think I know the person, I get a feeling, I can see the product, I can feel the product.
Offering more than 100 years of retail experience, Charlestown Boutique is all about good customer service, which you can't get staring at a screen.
You can interact with your customer, you can really work out exactly what your customer needs, go that extra mile, you know, as much as we possibly can to help people.
And try getting the perfect tailored suit. Not easy.
It's important that you get the right fit. You can't try on suits over the net.
The pressure of online sales has put a bit of pressure on pricing, downward pressure on pricing, and certainly makes retailers work very hard for their sales.
And it seems to be working.
Face-to-face or online?
Yes, face-to-face.
You get that one-on-one service and you get to actually see what it is that you're buying.
And there's one bonus with the face-to-face purchase. If you do have a problem, you can go back, talk to a sales assistant and get things fixed straight away.
Go into a shop's not going to crash.
No, well, you would hope not.
Amy Ziniak, NBN News.
The reminders are everywhere. From the walls to his body, David Reid and his partner Christine will never forget what happened in their Belmont home 7 years ago.
I lost my manhood that night because I couldn't defend my family, and that's pretty important to me.
3 men knocked on the couple's door pretending to be police.
They opened up with a sawn-off shotgun and fired twice into my abdomen area.
Then I had a machete put to my throat and taken into the bedroom where the money was being kept. Once I'd given them the money, they actually left.
David wasn't expected to live.
I woke up a few weeks later, I think it was, and I'm alive, but I've got the injuries for the rest of my life. They're not just put a band-aid on and you get better, they're ongoing.
While 2 men, including a former employee, are now serving time, a third, accused of attempted murder, has been released on bail, pending a 3rd trial in April.
I was a little bit shocked at first, but you watch a lot of news and you see similar stories where judges and juries and the legal system make strange decisions, which is a little bit hard to understand.
But what's upset this family more is that they weren't informed. The Director of Public Prosecutions has since offered a public apology, saying it's concerning Mr Reid wasn't told.
One phone call is all we would have asked.
But the popular butcher is determined to keep going, running his business and refusing to be the victim.
7 years down the track, I've got older, maybe wiser. I struggle every day with emotions, depression. It's hard. It's very hard,
He's my hero. He does so much for us, keeps us all together as a family unit. Yeah, I wouldn't trade him at the moment.
Not at the moment anyway.
Not at the moment.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
With both Ben Kennedy and Mark Birighitti on the injured list, the Jets are in desperate need of another keeper. And it looks like Van Egmond isn't taking any chances. With talk, Alex Verteski is set to join the squad. While Matthew Nash's short-term deal expires early next week, he too could be staying on.
Bit short on goalkeepers here, so I guess I'll be hanging around for a bit.
That's not the only spot Gary Van Egmond has been forced to cover. Former Fury playmaker Chris Grossman has joined the squad as injury cover for Ben Kantarovski. He's all smiles after trading his job at Woolworths for the training pitch.
I don't want to go back into that working environment again if I don't have to. It's such a good life being a professional footballer.
While Kantarovski is only expected to be sidelined for about a month, the 25-year-old is hopefully can make a big enough impression to stay on full-time with the Jets.
The ball's in my court now. They've given me the opportunity and I really need to prove that I want to be here.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News. It's a career that spanned more than 2 decades. And 70-year-old John Levick doesn't look like slowing down.
Going over there to win. It's no good. You don't get into a boxing ring unless you feel you can beat the person, and it's exactly the same all our team feel.
It's his 5th tour for Australia, something which never gets old.
Well, it's the epitome. It's the top of the tree as far as I'm concerned. It's great to play for your state and your club, but to be picked for Australia, it's great.
But today, Levick was fine-tuning the skills of the next generation. These students from Newcastle High getting a lesson from an expert.
And do as I told you, concentrate, arms straight and follow through.
It's a bit of an honour to play with someone who's playing for Australia, so you don't get many chances like that.
Quite a few of them are showing a lot of talent. They're getting the idea of it and the tactics of it. Well, the line was good, but you wanted a few more cornflakes.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
A park that should be filled with children playing in has been left abandoned.
At Wilkinson Park in Cardiff, play equipment and amenities have been targeted by vandals and left to fall apart. The park is only a short walk from St Kevin's, and its current condition has encouraged these students to take action. How do you feel about being involved in this project?
I feel good for the little children that want something in the community.
To watch the full story or to submit your own story idea, head to our website and we could be coming to your school.
This is Reece Williams
and Jenna Crow
reporting to you from St Kevin's, Cardiff
for NBN News
Junior Journos.
It's Renew Newcastle's biggest achievement yet, taking over the former David Jones store and reactivating the street frontage. After many months of planning, creativity and a lot of hard work, today it culminated in the opening of the Emporium. And memories came flooding back for loyal DJ's shoppers after entering the old store once again.
So it's a very, very special place for me, yes. So I'm delighted. And it looks great.
Over the past 4 years, Renew Newcastle has installed around 90 projects in disused buildings and shops in the city. Here, an arcade of 8 stores are bringing new energy to the western end of the Hunter Street Mall, including handmade kids' clothing brand Tickle and Hide. For Jodie Godfrey, it's an incredible opportunity, launching her into the retail world.
It's surreal. Who would have thought that little me with my 2 kids and my little business online would have these 2 massive windows on Hunter Street and my own space and shelves with my stuff on it. It's just a dream.
Some of the city's top creative talents, including fashion designers and artists, have set up unique boutiques and mini galleries.
It's a real surprise, it's a real treat, and it's really interesting being in this building.
And it's all just in time for Christmas.
We think there's lots of unique and interesting things that people will find in these spaces, so it's definitely a good option for Christmas shopping. Come and buy handmade, locally made, Newcastle-made products.
The Emporium will open Thursday to Saturday for the next 2 months. GPT may extend the term if it proves successful. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. With falling demand from China and increasing supply from the US, the cost of thermal coal has dropped to $84 per tonne, raising doubts about the strength of Australia's mining industry.
The price of thermal coal has certainly come off around 25% over the course of this year. That has put the local industry under pressure. The challenge for the industry is to maintain output and to maintain production levels.
And of course, another challenge, maintaining jobs. But the future still looks bright.
Over the medium to longer term, the level of global demand for energy means that our Hunter coal is going to be in demand for many decades to come.
The Hunter Business Chamber, which hosted today's mining industry luncheon, says for too long the region has been ignored when it comes to government investment. Stephen Galilee agrees, saying we have a good case for more funding.
It's arguably the most important mining region for the country. It's definitely the most important mining region for the state.
The Minerals Council recently surveyed 21 mining companies who revealed they spent $4.6 billion a year in the Hunter. Singleton received the largest amount of direct spending by the mining industry at $1.2 billion. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
It's not going to wake up the neighbours, but it will get them talking. Equivalent to a 250cc petrol-engined bike, the Catavolt has a 150 kilometre range, a 4-hour charging cycle and can undergo 3,000 charge-ups before the original battery starts to wear out. Innovator and builder John Eggenhausen calls it emission-free motoring, tyres and brake pads the only consumables.
It's good for the environment, it's great fun to ride. It just changes all the senses of riding a bike, so it's really good.
Road and race tested, the Catavolt at around $18,000 is more expensive than a similar petrol bike, but it doesn't have the fuel and maintenance costs. The prototype went public at the Electric Vehicle Festival earlier this year, representing a groundswell of innovation and experimentation.
My children are involved in the Electric Vehicle Festival and the Electric Vehicle competition that the school's involved in, and through that I met John and got talking, and when John said he was selling a bike commercially, I thought I'll put my hand up to that.
It's one of the largest community action trials ever conducted, aimed at reducing alcohol consumption and related harm. The project included 20 rural communities, including Gunnedah, Inverell, Grafton and Kempsey. Over a 5-year period, a series of strategies aimed at preventing and reducing the fallout from excessive drinking were implemented. And the results speak for themselves. They include a 33% reduction in alcohol-related street offences and an even bigger decrease in alcohol-fuelled verbal abuse.
The important thing is, not only did we get an effect, but they were actually quite large effects, so upwards of 30%.
The project also had a cost benefit. For every dollar spent on community action, more was returned to the area.
Smashing of public property, whether they be businesses in the main street or council-owned infrastructure. We saw a reduction in all of those incidents across all of those weekends as a result of the intervention of this program. And so from that perspective, we saved as a community tens of thousands of dollars.
The results are now helping to shape the way the issue is managed on both a local and state level in the future.
There are key points during the year, events in particular, where we need to be more vigilant, particularly around issues around policing.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
It's hard to question his dedication, but these conditions have become a familiar sight for Stuart McLaughlin through a long winter of training. His silver medal behind Shannon Eckstein at last weekend's World Titles, a victory in itself.
I thought, I might have him. He stumbled and I thought, I've got him. And then I thought, no, the guy's a freak. People say if you ain't first, you're last. In this case, I think you can probably be second and still be first.
His coach, Tim Foran, more than surprised with his protege's result.
I actually thought he'd win the thing, actually. So, no, he'd been training really well from the start of the season. So, I actually texted him the night before and said, I think you're going to win this thing.
Less than a week on, he's back in the water, fine-tuning his skills at Redhead Beach. One of Australia's only lay-down paddlers, the man known as the Wriggler, has his sights set on the Australian titles in March next year.
I guess I'll target state and then Aussies, and up there anything can happen. I just hope I can go one better.
After matching it stroke for stroke with the leaders in last year's Australian final, McLaughlin narrowly fell off the back of the lead wave and finished outside the medals in 4th place. His coach says he has the ability to go all the way this time around.
He's actually a really good chance of winning it. I mean, he's won 2 state titles. He's been the most consistent paddler in New South Wales for the past 5 years.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News. He narrowly missed the PGA Tour last year when he slept through his alarm. Now, James Nitties is one step away from redemption.
I think his whole game overall will get back to the James Nitties where he was playing the PGA Tour. So our goal with him particularly is actually getting back on the tour. So we've got to get in the top 25. It starts next Wednesday.
The 30-year-old overcoming more than just the tough Texas course.
Oh, it was a great effort. I mean, losing his dad, he's such a lovely guy, and his dad was just the loveliest man under the sun.
His coach continues to make an impact internationally, with Spanish and French Open winner Stacey Keating in Newcastle today for some fine-tuning at his Fern Bay facility.
It's world class, isn't it? I mean, it's got everything in the hit of a button, so yeah, I'm very lucky to have that.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.